Hello everyone and welcome to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya for the fourth round of the Formula Neagle Series sanctioned by the Absolute Beginner League. Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Ryman and alongside me in the booth I have Richie Hearn. Behind the scenes we have Sean Ambrose doing all of the button pushing and he's using camera sets provided by Dougie Beard. Well everyone, welcome here to the Global SimRacing Channel's coverage of this race. We are getting ready to race on one of the newest circuits on iRacing, so some of you might not be quite familiar with it. Let's give you an idea of what it's like.
Welcome to Circuit de Barcelona. The home of the Spanish Grand Prix for nearly 30 years, it's easy to forget that this is a relatively recently built track in Europe. It's known for its long, sweeping corners and hosts the highest level of open-wheel and motorcycle racing. Placing an emphasis on a good aerodynamic setup with high downforce cars, it's often overlooked that it offers plenty of overtaking for lower-tier racing as well. In fact, most don't take into account that this adaptable track has 5 different layouts to choose from. These range from the nearly 3-mile-long Grand Prix version to the minuscule 1-mile club circuit. Because of the pit straight being the longest acceleration zone, Elf is the most likely spot for drivers to get it past them. After that, your next hope might be into La Caixa, which, depending on which layout you use, could be a sharpened set of 2 turns or one long hairpin with an opening radius. In the early 2000s, a chicane was added close to the end of the lap, but the old Europe car corner can still be run. The Spanish fans have some gorgeous views from the many hills dotted along the track. And with the international fame this place has built over time, it's no wonder they're almost always full come race day.
And there we have some driver views of what it's like to go around here at Barcelona. It is one of the newest tracks on iRacing. I have driven a little bit. It's a lot of fun. It's a 2.8 mile long track, 16 total turns. There's a few elevation changes going downhill into turn 1 and then back up. Got some fast chicanes to play with. Some good passing zones for these cars, most notably in turn 1, possibly in turn 4, and definitely into turn 10 as we go into that last segment of the track. Should be a lot of fun. These cars are going to be sliding all over the place, so should be pretty exciting. Sam?
Yeah, absolutely it should be. As we're coming to the close of this championship, it's a season 18 of the Absolute Beginners for the Formula Neagle season, and so far Greg Seitz has dominated the season, but of course a track like Barcelona, anything can happen. We have the points on screen there for you. Of course, this track is, this area of the world is actually a lot of sport around here. This is a city that hosted the 1992 Summer Olympics. So hopefully these drivers will get sporty today, because even though Greg Seitz has been the story of a season with 3 wins in 3 starts, and granted, something is probably going to have to happen to him to lose this championship. There's still plenty that can happen because this is a new circuit. It's late in the championship. And also, Richie, it's not the only championship we have going on. We've got these F1 driver standings our viewers can see on screen right now. But we have some F2. We have an F2 driver championship going on as well.
Yeah, as you can see, there's graphics up on the screen right now. We got Sandre Engine with 50 points. John Torfey minus 18 points behind him, and Frederick Neptune sitting in 3rd. And real close behind him would be Matt Tempest, and I'm sorry I'm going to mess this up, but Wojciech Podacek. There you go. My producer's helping me out. This should be close too as we get near the end with only a couple races to go. So this is another championship that we're going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think we have a team championship going on as well. We've got the drivers on track right now, but we don't have a graphic for that. Here we go. A graphic telling you exactly what these drivers are up against today. It's round 4 of 5 of the season, a 40-minute race we're getting here today. Open setup so these drivers can tweak the cars the way they want. If they do get 13 incident points during the race, well, their cars are probably going to be in pieces because the skippies on iRacing have the new damage model. But if they somehow survive those 17 incidents, well, they'll be kicked out of the server anyway for running off track 17 times.
Yeah, that new damage model is pretty exciting. When you're driving it and seeing parts flying all over the track, it really gives it quite a realistic feel. And Hopefully we'll get that on some other cars soon, but it does make these skippies a lot more fun to drive.
Yeah, so it's a quick qualifying session here. This is a Grand Prix circuit, Richie, so it's quite a long lap around. But these drivers only have 10 minutes to put in a qualifying time. It takes them around 2 minutes to get around the track. And not only do they have to deal with traffic on their qualifying lap, but they can't put a wheel wrong.
Yeah, and there's plenty of places where they can drop a wheel here and there and get that incident point and delete their lap, but it is over 2 minutes around this track, so that takes 2 minutes just to get the green flag and then another 2 minutes to get a lap. So if you do make a mistake, you got to just you're lucky to get even one more after that. So qualifying will be tricky, but the drafting in these cars are pretty good, so I don't think it's going to really be too important if you're not up front. Track's very wide, so they're going to have plenty of racing room.
Yeah, we were covering a GT car race here a few rounds ago on the GSRC and the iRacing Esports Network, Richie, though, where there were collisions going down into the first corner. You mentioned how starting a bit further back might not be a huge deficit because there's places to get a slipstream around here and places to pass. But my concern, if I start that far back, is with that long run into turn one, anything can happen before we even get to the first corner, and you don't want to be behind it.
Oh, absolutely. And when they go through that first chicane, you can go around it, but you're going to get a slowdown penalty, and that's going to really kill your speed as well. Another thing to note is they come through the last section, the huge sausage curves that they have, and that itself can do some suspension damage. So it's going to be important for them to stay off of that as well.
As we see the drivers starting to click off some laps, let's give you an idea of what the weather is like here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. Relatively nice day, 73 degrees air temperature and mostly cloudy out there. Fairly strong wind, considering that these are lightweight cars. That track temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. A little on the warm side, Richie. The drivers might want to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, the tires are pretty stout, but yep. If it keeps creeping up above 100, then they're going to start feeling that later in the race.
So our eagle eye viewers probably saw the top times appearing at the top of the screen as the drivers put their first laps in. It was Greg Seitz who got the fastest time so far, our championship leader. And, well, we were making a big deal at the top of the show that anything can happen, and he might not necessarily, walk away with a huge points lead if something bad happens to him and his competitors have a good race. Unfortunately, qualifying on pole is a place to put your car that's out of harm's way, but the 206.6 is beatable, Richie. We saw times as low as 204 in practice.
Yeah, I mean, with the group qualifying, I'm watching Greg Seitz right now, and he's got a couple cars in front of him, so he's got a draft to help him out. So I expect him to lower this time next time around. And the guy sitting in second, Lee Anderson, is all by himself, so he's going to have a little bit of a deficit. Definitely starting on pole, you kind of control your destiny, so it's the safest place to be.
And already as we ride on board Lee Anderson here, who is second quickest, and now they're about to all come around and put in their second lap of the session. I wonder if we're seeing some kind of like F1 Monza style qualifying here, where the drivers all did this intentionally. They wanted to be out on track together so that they could get a toe off their competitors. Lee Anderson to the top at 2:05.8 as drivers click off their second laps. And right now, Greg Seitz has been pushed all the way back down to third.
Yeah,
oh, no, he hasn't.
Yeah, he just crossed the line. He's got, like I say, a couple guys in front of him, but look at the times, how close they are, 2:05.49 to a 2:05.84. So in a track with that type of time length, that's not a lot.
And assuming this continues, that the drivers go around in a massive pack, the pack's only going to cross the finish line two more times before in this qualifying session. One more time before the clock expires, and then they get a second lap. A little bit of cloud cover, Richie, so maybe the lap times are going to continue to improve. You've got to stay on top of your game here.
Yeah, and with the tire model of this car, it does take a little bit to get some heat into those tires, so just naturally they're going to start feeling better and better as they get farther into qualifying.
Yeah, we've gone from 206s down to 205s. Like we mentioned, we saw some 204s in practice. Here are drivers such as Lee Woodburn out here. He's down in 15th, the slowest driver to have turned a qualifying lap right now. And he's still drifting around a little bit, so I'm not sure how much faster he is going to go. But of course, the problem being on this side of the circuit, Richie, even though you have the track to yourself, you're not going to be getting up to a very good top speed down this main straight.
No, and it's a pretty long straight, so if you're by yourself, you're definitely at a deficit. Lee Anderson's coming around, nearing the final sector of this track, so he'll be the first one to cross as far as the top 3 goes. And there he is on screen right there. He's coming through that fine. You can see those big yellow sausage curves. You got to stay off of those. And here he comes around the final corner. We'll see what time he can put down.
205.4 is what he's got to try and get. The 205.8 is where he stands. It's a 205.3, so it's a top, but Greg Seitz is not too far behind him on track.
Nah, Greg Seitz is coming across the line right about now. Yeah, I think he had to pass somebody, and looks like his time was nullified, so he must have dropped a wheel somewhere. So he sits second right now.
So the clock will expire by the time this massive pack of cars, which includes our second row of Michael Hafler-Dason and Sondre Engen, cross the line again. But the lap time will count still, Richie. But this is it. This is their last lap. This is their time to see if they can beat that 205.3 that Lee Anderson has up. Of course, we got some not necessarily stragglers here, but islands in the stream drivers just kind of running around on their own, seeing what they can do with no drafting help.
And a big difference in times, too, from Lee Anderson, 205.3, all the way down to 16th as a 210. That's quite a difference, so I would be surprised if they don't start hitting some lap traffic near the end of this race.
Yeah, by the way, Lee Anderson, who is our provisional pole sitter right now, he is doing it without the draft. Even though he's kind of part of that big pack of cars we have going around, he's at the front of it, so he's not having any slipstream help. Now, the checkered flag has flown, but as you see on the clock on the top of your screen, these drivers still have 3 minutes left to turn a lap. That adds a bit of cushion, though. If you do turn a lap as soon as the checker comes out and you still have 3 minutes left, iRacing will say, no, we're only going to count the one where you go across the checkered flag line. And that's what some drivers are doing now, including Lee Woodburn. He jumps up to 13th place. About 20 cars in total. Here comes the pack. Lee Anderson leading them.
And let's see if he can improve on that 205.3. Wow, dropped it down to a 204.8. Greg Seitz is coming around. Let's see what he can do.
The good news for Greg Seitz fans, he hasn't been bumped. He will be on the front row at the very least,
wow.
It looks like. Wow, that's close.
That is close. 204.819 to a 204.800. So that's going to be a close race as we get. You can't get much closer than that, really.
Yeah, Ludwig Sauer's a top 10 driver just coming out the final turn. He's that blue car at the back of the screen. I think he got held up by another car, though. So he stays in 9th place.
We did have Christopher Garros move up to 3rd and put Michael Hafler-Dason down to 4th. Hafler-Dason.
Oh, no lap so far for Frederick Neptune. Let's see if he had a clean lap. He did. 11th fastest. So that'll move him up. All right, well, that is going to conclude qualifying. And as these drivers plug in their race setup, so let's read out the grid for you. It's going to be Lee Anderson starting on pole position ahead of championship leader Greg Seitz. I'm sure Anderson would like Greg to be shuffled back a bit more than that, but at the very least, he's ahead of him. They have a whole second over your third fastest qualifier, Christopher Garros, who just edges Michael Hafler-Dason by a couple of tenths. Sondre Engen will round out the top 5 ahead of Matt Tempest, and then on row number 4 will be Josh Brain and Wojciech Potaszek. Ludwig Sauer will be starting from 9th place ahead of Peter Houston, rounding out the top 10.
Starting in 11th is going to be Frederick Neptune and Elias Folchek in 12th. And Andrew Saunders is going to be 13th. Troy Banks, thanks for that easy name there, in 14th. Lee Woodburn in 15th. Sean Trechek in 16th. Edgar Sancinelli in 17th. And Neil Armstrong and Christopher Crook will round out the final row.
Yeah, some complicated names back there. I've never heard anyone called Neil Armstrong. But yeah, we have a variety of different nationalities out here. I'm seeing on our the iRacing club entry list, we've got Scandinavia, Canada, Benelux, Central Eastern Europe, the UK and the United States. And actually, that about sums it up. But still, a variety of different drivers, Richie. And we always overlook the fact how great it is iRacing is that we can come here and all race together at the same time.
Yeah, no, it is great. And the fact that it's 24/7, you can get on anytime. There's always going to be people on that are race. So it does make it a truly international series.
And this is one of the most popular cars to be raced out there, I think, especially since the new damage model has come along. People have been like, well, if I'm going to crash, I might as well have wheels fly off my cars. Hopefully we won't see too many wheels flying off on the run down to turn 1. Lee Anderson will be leading this field for a standing start, a 40-minute race here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, and the drivers will be required to make 1 pit stop for fuel. They have limited fuel cells. Other than that, they have open setups. They can tweak their winds, tweak their sprints, and try and make their cars as fast as possible, and you definitely want that down the long straight here. The clock has expired. Gridding time is over. We're getting ready to go racing for 40 minutes. The lights off and away they go. Lee Anderson gets a nice start, and providing you don't botch a start, everyone's going to have pretty much the same acceleration speed as these cars get up to full son. The top 2 are single file. Then it's a 3-wide battle for 3rd place. They're going to want to get themselves sorted before this first chicane, and here they go. Anderson holding off sides and very deep on the brakes, and out wide goes Sides. This is a boom for Anderson as there's chaos behind him.
Yeah, Sights got hit from behind, and there's a huge amount of wrecks there going right on behind. Everybody's kind of getting wadded up, but Sights did get hit from behind and sent him out wide, and then it all started there.
And we said anything could happen at this new circuit, and it looks like that's exactly what happened, because Sights has definitely lost out here, whereas Anderson is pulling away. Giros is in 2nd. So I'm trying to work this out. Was that Michael Haflidason who went in too deep on the brakes and kind of triggered that? Or that was Michael Haflidason, and he's had to take a tow to the pits as well as many other cars.
He tried to get it slowed down, and then just a little bit too much rear brake turned that thing sideways. Not only did he clip Greg Sights, but then he just pretty much broadsided into the corner.
Well, Greg Sights is still out there on track. I think he's dropped to about 7th position, maybe 6th position, but his car doesn't look too badly damaged. He took an evasive left turn to go through the runoff area and escape all the carnage. It cost him a ton of track position, Richie, but as far as the championship is concerned, the very fact that he's still running could keep him at the top of the standings. Oh,
yeah, he's lucky to keep going. He has a little damage to the front of his car, but he can get that fixed later on. Nothing to stop him right now.
Might have seen a bit of tyre smoke in the back there. Edgar Santinelli had a bit of a spin. So many cars were really involved in that lap 1 carnage. We'll give you a rundown of all the cars out of a race once things settle out here. I was saying a moment ago because Matt Tempest had a big moment coming out of the turn after the back straight, and that has bunched the cars up behind him. Sondra Engen, Greg Sights, and I think there's another car actually that's disappearing with connection issues involved in this battle. That's Polacek having connection issues.
Yeah, right now Lee Anderson comes across the line. He has a massive 2.7 lead over Christopher Guerreros. Our points leader, Greg Sights, is back down in 6th position. He does have a couple of guys in front of him. And so he has a chance to make up some spots.
Engen, a very slow exit out of a chicane. That costs him a position to Matt Tempest, trying to recover from his mistake a lap ago. Wojciech going by as well. Now, Wojciech's connection clears up a bit, but it was very bad down the front straight, and I don't know if that's something that might need addressing late on in the race as Matt Tempest runs out wide, and that's going to allow Greg Sights to already go back up to 3rd place. The problem is, Richie, he's about 5-6 seconds back of the lead already.
Yeah, pretty much Lee Anderson's got the race in hand at the moment. But Tempest does have the pace to, Seitz does have the pace to catch up to second place. So he's just got to be patient. Got a long ways to go still. And like you said earlier, there is going to be one stop required.
Okay, so it looks like 13 cars are still in the race and out there out of 19 starters. So at the end of lap 1, we have lost Lee Woodburn, Ales Wojciech, Peter Houston, Michael Haflidason, Troy Banks, and I'm not sure Neil Armstrong actually ever made the start. So already the field has been greatly reduced.
This battle here for looks like third, fourth, fifth area, man. These guys are battling hard. He's got their leader there, just kind of doing his thing, but here comes the pack. These guys are racing pretty hard as they come through that final area, through that tricky last chicane. On to the front stretch.
You'll see how these guys sold out. So this is a battle for fourth now that Seitz has gone by them and pulled away, and it's between Matt Tempest and Podolzek, and I think Podolzek's got a run. He's definitely going to have a position by the time to get to the turn. The thing is how hard will Tempest fight to get it back? A battle for sixth place going on behind him as well. Engen getting by Sauer. And, he didn't do it as clean. Engen ran a little wide, and that's going to compromise his racing line going through the next couple of corners. So Sauer might try and make something happen on the inside coming out of turn 3 on the run down to turn 4. We've seen passes here before, we've seen drama here before, and Sauer thinks better of it and filters back in. I wouldn't be surprised if these battles grew their ugly head again, but let's take a quick look, Richie, at what happened at the start of this race, because that's definitely defined the event for a lot of our drivers. And it all started with a 3-wide battle. Michael Haflidason trying to go down the inside and just a bit too late on the brakes.
Yeah, Lee got a great start, was able to block the inside, and everything was fine with him, but this is where all goes wrong, and you're going to jump on board with him, and he's going to get in the corner, and you're going to see the rear end come around and clips him, and then now he's sideways on the track, and everybody just kind of scatters.
And it would be interesting, actually, I know he wasn't involved in the crash, but to get an onboard and Greg Seitz, you just watch the carnage coming out of there. Greg took an evasive maneuver. He realized Michael wasn't going to make the corner, so we ride on board with him. He kind of turns left once he realizes he's about to get rear-ended, and then you know, he has a clear path through the runoff area while everyone else is wrecking on the racing track. I think he did get better contact.
I think he got a little bit on the front, and he hit Lee, and took his front cone off the front of that thing. But yeah, good awareness to just kind of give up on the corner and survive.
Hasn't slowed him down, though. Look at this. He's going for second place on Christopher Giros, and he has a run. He has the position, and as long as he can not overshoot his braking zone into the first corner, he should emerge from this battle, I would say, with second place. So bad news again. He is still 5 seconds behind Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson sitting pretty right now, but still a long ways to go in this race.
Yeah, he's sitting about 5 seconds behind, but after that first turn, he probably didn't think he'd be able to get up to second this quickly. So now he's just got to put his head down and just try to chip away at it.
A 40-minute race, of course, is a sprint race, and it's going by in a hurry. We're almost at a quarter distance, even though we've only put 3 complete laps on the board. So strategy will be a factor, of course. So when these drivers choose to pit, some of them might even be saving fuel at the back of that train behind these guys, trying to go on and, you know, see if they can have a shorter pit stop later on in this race and if they can gain anything from that.
Yeah, their pit stops are not very quick as far as fueling goes. They're not really meant to be refueled, so it takes a little bit. So even if you can save a gallon, that's going to be some good track time that you're going to save once you get back out there.
These cars hitting about 110 miles an hour down this downhill back straight. So you can see fourth on back. Fourth place is Wojciech Podolzek. But behind him, there's a really long train, and I wonder if for drivers at the tail end of that train, such as Josh Brain in the number 946 car in 8th place, if he's just content to ride 8th place for now, Richie, and, you know, save a bit of fuel and see what happens.
Yeah, if you don't feel like you have the pace to get by him, you might as well just hang there and just try to pass him in the pits. That's the easiest and safest way to get by everybody. Greg Seitz has gotten ahead of Christopher Guerros, but Christopher's hanging with him. He's staying right there, able to stay in his draft as they come down the front straightaway. But, you know, Seitz is not able to gap him quite enough. And the gap to Seitz to Anderson is 5.1 seconds.
Which was less than it was before. You saw Lee Anderson set the fast lap, and then Seitz set the fastest lap, and that was with making the pass. So now that Seitz is in second, I wouldn't say comfortably in second because Guerros is still quite close behind him. Let's see if Seitz can continue the click off at clean laps, and if he can run Lee Anderson down.
Yeah, he was about 0.3 of a second faster than Lee that last lap. So yeah, a little bit at a time, but he's got a long ways to go.
So right now it's Anderson, Seitz, Guerros, Podajek, a battle for 5th between Matt Tempest and Sondra Engen. Tempest is on the inside, but Engen pulls it off. That was actually a pass for position there, and Tempest is going to continue to fade back. So he was in 5th. He may go down to 7th now, as Ludwig Sauer runs him to the very edge of the racetrack.
Yeah, almost wheel-to-wheel contact there. And with this new damage model, you don't want to do that too much. And great battle here for, like you said, for 5th spot as Sauer's able to get in front of Engen. Sorry, ahead of Tempest.
They're all shuffling around. Who knows who's going to be where. Behind all this, the driver in 9th place is Christopher Crook, and give him a shout out because he's done that from dead last on the grid. Now, I know a lot of that was probably just attributed to luck from getting through the carnage, but still some heads up driving, and also I'm going to give him a shout out for having 63. It's the number I race with too. So Christopher Cook doing it better justice than I can, and up 10 positions from where he started. Probably hoping in for another pile up front, but they're a little bit more spread out now. As you see, Greg Seitz has set the fastest lap again. 4.6 seconds now his deficit to the lead.
We are getting a pass with Josh Brain going around Matt Tempest. So move Josh Brain up to 8th spot, or 7th spot, excuse me, and move Matt down to 8th. I'm all screwed up here.
No, I mean, well, Matt's been in every position this lap. He started last lap in 5th place, and now he's all the way down to 8th. So not a very good couple of minutes here from Matt Tempest. He's gone from pretty much leading that train of cars we were talking about to being the caboose.
Yeah, pretty much straightforward. Just get the draft, good run off that last corner you see in the replay. Get the position and move on. He's bringing Matt Tempest around with him, but Josh Brain has definitely been on the move.
You mentioned Greg Seitz taking half a second out of Lee Anderson last lap around with the fastest lap of the race. The other thing that has allowed Greg to do is run away from Christopher Guerros. He's put a couple of seconds on him, so Christopher's running all on his own back there in the bronze step of the podium.
Yeah, Greg has definitely found his rhythm as he's the only guy in the 204s. And he's, like I say, chipping away at it. I'm sure Lee is watching his relative to seeing that happen. It'd be interesting to know how the strategy plays out and when these guys decide to come in.
Yeah, and it'll also be interesting to see if Lee bases his strategy based off of what Greg is doing. Does he stay out there to hold him up, or does he come in early so that Greg doesn't have a carrot to chase? You know, maybe get some slipstream of some lap cars. That doesn't really sound like an ideal strategy, but I think he's going to have to do something, Richie, because Greg is coming.
Yeah, he just dropped that fastest lap again, a couple of tenths. So That last lap, he was again half a second faster. So, like, Greg just needs to keep doing what he's doing. Lee's going to have to figure something out. He's going to have to find some speed or somehow work it out to where he got a little bit of strategy. And there's a lap comparison on the screen. You can see how he's closing in each lap. And he's still healthy 4.2 seconds back, but it wasn't that long ago. It was over 5 seconds.
I'm a little concerned for some of these drivers. We might be seeing one or two of them disappear at the end of the race for hitting that 17 incident point limit, because we're seeing a lot of drivers take liberties on this AstroTurf. Now, sometimes iRacing lets you get away with the AstroTurf, but if you go, you know, hit it at the wrong place or get a bit of a grass or a bit of a gravel, that will give you an incident point.
Yeah, there's a couple of places here, you know, when I drove it, they'll let you get away with 4 over the white line. But there's some that aren't, so it's just a matter of knowing where those spots are. Yeah, you don't want to get disqualified for that, for sure.
Big scrap going on for 11th place between Frederick Neptune and Andrew Saunders. They both just got by Edgar Santinelli. Andrew Saunders leading that train right now, but Neptune trying to attempt some kind of crossover move. He's got a bit of front wing damage. These cars being this far back here almost wouldn't mind me if all of them were it got a little piece of that turn 1 incident. So Neptune takes it back, and boy, these drivers all want to be in 11th position.
Yeah, they're going back and forth, crisscrossing around the track, and nice clean driving, but you can see they're driving as hard as they can, even though it is for that 10th spot.
And the one car ahead of them there, that's actually a lap car. So Troy Banks has gotten back out on circuit. Oh, one collision here. And all of them, I think, getting a little piece of that. Saunders drives away. Santinelli got a little bit. Neptune was the one who went for a spin, and that's going to cost him a bunch of time.
Yeah, pretty much looks like Saunders completely missed his braking point and basically ran into the back of Neptune. And they all have some definite wheel damage. Even though Santinelli kind of gets through, he almost comes to a complete stop to miss it.
And none of them elect to come into the pits, so I guess that they're not too badly beat up. But that was an option for them, because that crash took place only a few corners away from pit entry.
And we have the leader here. He's 4.0 seconds, so he's lost another couple tenths. Lee's been going faster and faster, but not as fast as Greg Seitz, so at least he's not losing half a second a lap, but he's still losing a couple of tenths. So obviously Lee's gotten the go-ahead and decided, well, I got to start pushing a little bit more, because otherwise Greg's going to be here before I know it.
Peter Huston has also came back out on track. He was one of the drivers in the pits at the end of the first lap. So some drivers seeing what kind of points they can salvage after the early attrition, and almost continued attrition after what we saw just one lap ago. Looked like we would lose a few more cars. So let's give you an update on that gap. You can see it on the left side of the screen between Lee Anderson and Greg Seitz. The last lap at the line, it was 4.0 seconds, as you mentioned, Richie. So Lee Anderson ran a 2:04.5 last lap around. This lap around, he runs a 2:04.4. As you mentioned, getting faster, but when Greg Seitz comes across the line, he runs a 2:04.1. And obviously that's just a little bit each lap.
Yeah, and you can definitely see him now. So once you see that driver, it's a lot easier to kind of judge your braking and everything. So Greg Seitz has got his sights on Anderson.
And they have really left Christopher Gearros and everyone else behind them. Once Gearros lost second, he's kind of faded back to 2:06.1s. And in fact, he's probably going to get caught by a lot of cars behind him.
Yeah, he's only a couple of seconds ahead of Wilczek Podacek. So those guys are going to start closing up on them.
Approaching the halfway point of this race time-wise. I've always felt the drivers at the front end of a pack are probably going to want to stretch it long so they don't get caught up in any traffic when they come in to make their scheduled pit stop. Of course, with the early carnage, there won't be as much traffic. Won't be as much lap traffic either, which is a good thing. It's always nice to see these battles decided on track between the drivers involved in them.
Yeah, it looks like we have 15 cars still running, with Troy Banks sitting in 15th, and he's 5 laps down, so he obviously had to come in and get some damage repaired.
Yeah, and Peter Huston 4 laps down, so that leaves Lee Woodburn, Les Fotrick, and Michael Haflidason and Neil Armstrong all out of this race before it even got halfway. Now I'll have to look forward to the final round.
As we come onto the front straightaway, let's see what that gap is now. It was 3.7, and it is now 3.5. So slowly but surely, Greg has dropped it down to a 2.204.0. As Lee's, getting faster, but not enough. He's still losing time. That's got to be frustrating, knowing that you're putting in faster laps, and then you look down and he's still gaining on you. So you got to be careful not to overdrive the car and make that mistake.
So Lee Anderson enters this race only 7 points ahead of Michael Haflidason in the battle for second. Now, obviously, he is going to extend that because Michael Haflidason was involved in that lap 1 crash. And Haflidason was probably hoping not only to keep up with Lee Anderson, but to pull away in points from David Burns and Christian Kabenga, who didn't show up today. Well, of course, that's not going to happen because Haflidason's hardly got any points. So, seeing our first scheduled pit stop here, this is Christopher Crook. He was the 63 car that started last and moved up 10 positions by making his way through all the carnage, but he's coming in for a pit stop right at the halfway point.
Yeah, I just decided to split it half and half.
This is a battle for 4th and 5th on track. Wojciech Podrzek and Sondra Engen. Edgar Santinelli has also been in for a scheduled stop.
Coming down towards turn 4. Engen not able to make a move just yet. We're going to go and climb this little hill, this quick right sweeping corner, and then it'll kind of lead back on down the hill. Sorry, that was turn 10 they were at, excuse me.
Lee Anderson continues to get faster and faster, but so does Greg Sykes. Now, a lot of that, of course...
Checks in.
Yeah, here it comes. A lot of that can be attributed to the fuel burning off, Richie. Getting lighter race cars out here. Not that they're not light enough already.
You can see a little bit of damage on Podczek's car, that nose cone missing. The same kind of damage that Seitz has, but it definitely hasn't slowed him down at all. As that gap has come down to 3 seconds as we're on board with Podczek coming to his box.
I wonder if Greg Sykes is going to turn repairs off when he comes into the pit. So try and keep the nose the way it is because it seems to be working for him.
Yeah, there you go. His got fixed there. He's running that Walker Racing Robbie Gordon Gilles de Ferrin paint scheme on that car. It's kind of cool. That was my era of Indy cars.
I know Robbie Gordon was involved in a few moments during his racing history. Oh, talking about moments, Sean Tretiak has had a spin, and he is parked right now at pit entry, so he's got to hope no one wants to use it right now. Was he able to keep this off the wall? He's coming into the pits.
Yeah, I don't think he was trying to come into the pits. It just happened.
Yeah, fate told him to go into the pits. But anyway, going off that Robbie Gordon comment there, Richie, you ever get involved in some wheel-to-wheel battles with him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was racing in my era there, so he was always somebody. I mean, he was just super aggressive. You just knew how to race him. He would race you just the same way as you can race him. So he was always interesting to be around, but always a great competitor.
So, as a racing driver, when someone races you aggressively, but they do it as Christopher Geros comes in for his scheduled stop, but they do it consistently, is that something you drivers are okay with? You know, it's like, oh, this driver's racing me that way, but he always does that.
Yeah, you just some consistency is what you're looking for. So I mean, everybody has their tendencies, and you just want to know what those are, and you just race accordingly. So yeah, just the way he was, you knew he was going to race you hard, and maybe a few cheap shots here and there, and you just give it right back. All right, 16 minutes to go. The gap is now down to 2.7 seconds. Not this lap, but the lap before. Greg Seitz did drop it down to under 2 minutes 4 seconds. But when he came around this time into turn one, he had someone coming out of the pit, so he lost a little bit of time there. But he's slowly creeping into Anderson's lead here, lap by lap.
I think Anderson's doing exactly what he needs to do, running as fast as possible. It looks like he's unfazed by the fact that Greg Seitz is running him down. He does see lap traffic ahead of him. I almost wonder if he'll use that as an excuse to take an early stop, but I think Anderson wants to try and come in as the same lap as Seitz, Richie, and make sure that he doesn't try and undercut him or anything that way.
Well, it's kind of hard to do when you're in front of him by that much. So he's at the mercy of what Greg Seitz does, and he's not going to know what that is until it's there. But yeah, if you're going to catch into traffic, you're better off pitting. Clear yourself of that. We're definitely in the window here, and it should happen anytime soon.
Could happen right now, and it is. So Lee Anderson's coming in, runs Seitz over the pit entry curve. Yep.
And Seitz is going to cover him, come in at the same time, and we'll see who has the better stop. Seitz come in hot, locking up the wheels, trying to get under to that speed limit.
Speed limit of 50 miles an hour. No pit limiters in these cars. They have to do it the hard way.
They're pitting right to each other as they started first and second. And we'll see how this works out. It's going to be close, I think.
I think Anderson wants to get rolling here soon. He doesn't want Greg to move before him. And there he goes. Anderson goes. Seitz goes. And I think Anderson might have actually gained a bit of time on him there.
We'll see how they can get up to speed as quickly as possible. These tires sometimes are a little tricky on those opening laps. So really, if Anderson can have a really good opening lap here out of the pits, this might make or break his race, because we obviously already know that Seitz is faster than him, and he's going to need all the space he can be for his final, all the space he can get for his final 15 minutes.
Yes, obviously the timing disagrees with me, says that Greg had the faster stop than Anderson, but the key for Greg Seitz, he was just able to beat Matt Tempest out of the pits. If Matt Tempest came around and got ahead of him, that would have not been good news for Greg.
No, that is the key, getting out there and not getting caught in that traffic right away.
So 2.5 seconds remains the leaders between the top two with 12 minutes left. Lee Anderson could definitely do this. Greg Seitz could definitely do this. I certainly believe we're going to see a battle between them by the time this is said and done. Andrew Saunders and Frederick Neptune are racing each other out pit road. Looks like Andrew's won that. So on screen here we have Sondra Engen ahead of currently running 5th and 6th position. So the top 5 right now are Lee Anderson, Greg Seitz, Matt Tempest, Christopher Geros, Sondra Engen, and Wojciech Podolak. Sorry, I skipped over someone, didn't I?
I believe Matt hasn't pitted yet, so let's put him up in the 3rd.
And now, indeed, Matt Tempest is coming into the pits to serve that stop. The top 8 have really pulled away from the rest. I think the rest, honestly, were probably all picked up an incident point or two in the opening lap incident. And we've had the top 2 running away. We've had a good battle from 3rd to 8th through this race, and we've had a good battle around 10th all race long, and that's continuing. Here you see that on screen, the aforementioned battle we saw coming out of the pits of Frederick Neptune and Andrew Saunders, and Neptune ahead now. I'm pretty sure I saw Saunders coming out of the pits in front, so he might have had a mistake somewhere.
So Greg Seitz has closed it down to 2 seconds, and we got about just about 5 laps left, maybe 4.5. So he's going to get there, and we're going to have a battle for the lead right at the end.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting here to see what the time clock says when Lee Anderson comes across the line. He came across the line at 27 minutes and 44 seconds. Remember, a lap here is not 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes and 4 seconds. You tack on all those 4-second increments, and yeah, I think you're right here that we might be looking at 4 or 5 laps left to go. We'll try and do the math a bit better as it gets closer to crunch time. 3rd, 4th, 5th still up for grabs as well. Christopher Giros not too far ahead of Engen, not too far ahead of Podolczyk.
Yeah, it's a good little battle between Podolczyk and Engen, and looks like Giros. I believe that's Giros on screen right there. There you go. There's those guys battling it out. So sliding through the corners, just throwing it in there as they come to that final chicane. One thing about these cars that's really fun, I mean, you can just really throw the thing around and kind of drift it around the corners, so it does make it for a little bit of a workout, but it makes it a lot of fun.
Well, Lee Anderson actually pulled away a little bit from Greg Seitz last lap around. I think that's really the first time that's happened this race. I'm a little worried, Richie, for Lee's sake, that we're right on the cusp here. Well, he'll probably, in 4 laps' time, I think he'll be crossing the start-finish line right at the 40-minute mark, but sometimes when that happens on iRacing, they give him another lap.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the difference between whether he wins or loses, depending on if they get that extra lap or not. So that'll be something to watch. And like you said, it's just those 4-second increments adding up, and then sometimes that just makes it force you to do 1 extra lap.
Yeah, even though Lee Anderson pulled away from Seitz last lap, I'm sure Lee wants this race to be over as quickly as possible, and Greg would love another full green flag stint.
And he's going to be catching up to lap traffic soon. He's going to catch up to Sean Tricek. So we'll see if that plays a part.
And Sean was a driver involved in the battle for 10th, 11th early on, but had that spin at pit entry. Was able to keep it off the wall, but of course it cost him a lot of time, and he's really the last of the cars that hasn't gone to the pits for damage today.
You can see off the back of Sean's car, here comes the leaders. They're going to catch him right at the correct time. At least Lee is. I don't know if Greg's going to catch him at the right time, so this could be definitely very helpful for Lee Anderson's cause to win this race.
Yeah, I'm sure Lee would have liked it if Sean had just backed off on the front straight. He doesn't know, and Sean might actually hold him up in the chicane here.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
not
he got
the way
out the
to
way.
do it.
He got out of the way, but yeah, like I say, Richie, I'm sure the leader would have preferred to have seen that car disappear a few seconds before him.
Yeah, just a pro tip there. You're better off just lifting on the braking zone, let them go, and it doesn't hamper your race either. So just sometimes don't race them into the corner. Oh, here comes Craig right on the back of Sean and kind of having the same problem. I'm sure it's making Greg a little bit angry that he's just not getting out of the way. And now he gets by him, and the race can resume.
Yeah, it's fair treatment, though. You know, he held the Lee Anderson up a bit, so do the same to Greg. Shouldn't be any more lap traffic for these guys, I wouldn't think. 11th and 12th are far up the road, and here they are, in fact. They're in a bit of a battle. Two of our blue race cars out here. Andrew Saunders holding off Edgar Santinelli.
Yeah, these folks were involved in a wreck earlier on. And here goes Santinelli down the inside, getting the draft and drag race into the break zone. Looks like Edgar's going to get this pretty cleanly.
Well, get it at the braking zone, but the way they've been racing for 10th, 11th all race long makes me think this isn't over yet. I think Andrew might try and attempt something to get it back, and probably sooner rather than later. Third place continues to be Christopher Giros, not too far ahead of Sondra Engen, and then Wojciech Podolzek finishing out that train, but that'll definitely be up for grabs. Third, fourth, and fifth. I'm sure they're going to fight it out in the final 3 or 4 laps, whatever we have left, and I really don't know the answer to that, Richie.
Yeah, and these two guys, Podolzek and Engen, are all playing for that Formula 2 championship, and Matt Tempest is in that battle as well, but he's behind them.
Yeah, if a human ran this race, there would be 3 laps left to go, but it's done by a computer, and computers sometimes don't get it wrong, but just don't get it the way you think would happen. But one way or another, it's the closing stages of this race. Third place is being held down by Christopher Giros, and I'm sure Sondra and Wojciech would like to have that third place. 1.5 seconds continue to separate our top 2. Oh, Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson sideways through the chicane. That's going to cost him some time.
Yeah, definitely almost broadsided that curb there, but it's definitely, you can definitely tell he's feeling the heat because it's 1.6 seconds, 1.3 seconds actually, and it looks like he's starting to overdrive the car. He's getting close to the end, 4 minutes to go. And I think it's going to be 3 laps. I don't think it's going to be 2.
We'll see Christopher Giros has Sondra Engen right on his gearbox for third place now. They're heading down the back straight. I think Engen's a bit too far back to do anything about it.
Seitz is now 1.1 seconds. They're coming through that final chicane. He's definitely close enough now to pick up the draft as they come around the final corner onto the straightaway. And game on at this point.
Yeah, Anderson got a much better exit out of that final chicane, though. I wonder if that's because it's the first time Seitz has had to deal with dirty air for a while. So they crossed the line there with less than 4 minutes left on the clock. That tells me a 2-lap race. It's really up to the iRacing gods.
Yeah, it should be 2 laps, but you never know.
Oh, and the battle for third is on. Engen has got a great exit out of the final corner. He's going by Giros.
Side by side as they drag race each other down into turn 1. You can see how the track goes downhill, and that's what makes that braking zone so tricky. The third car in line there is looking to pick up any of the pieces that might be left.
A lock-up from Giros as he got into line into 4th place. So this is for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Giros right on the gearbox of Engen. Gotta hope there's not any netcode between them, because that would have resulted in contact. And Engen is going defensive, using the Nico Rosberg line down on the inside, heading into turn 4. But fortunately, it doesn't end as ugly this time around. Giros going around the outside. He might not be able to pull that off, and Engen's going to cover him off.
Yeah, you can see Podolzek there behind them. He's looking to get by, but there's nowhere to go by because they're side by side. But I think there's going to be some contact here before the end of the race, and maybe Podolzek can clean it up for him.
Giros was one down the inside there, getting 3rd place back, and Engen has to back off a bit. Oh, and he gets hit from behind.
Yeah, and his Podolzek causing the contact, and it blew his front wing off. He's going to continue on, but it's definitely not going to handle any better now.
You saw that piece of debris skating across the road. That was the front nose cone of Polacek's car. And he got on the radio, I'm pretty sure he was apologising for that. Fortunately, they were all able to keep it pointing straight.
Yeah, just a little bit of racing incident. You see the damage on Polacek's car, so he's going to pay the price. Up front, it's 1 second now as they go down the straightaway, and you can see Anderson is actually starting to weave. He knows he's there, so he's starting to weave down that front straightaway to try to break that draft.
I'd like confirmation from our director, but I'm fairly certain this is the final lap. They cross the line with 1 minute 54 left on the clock. A lap around here is 2 minutes 3 seconds. I think that's enough for iRacing to recognize, the computer software to recognize that this is a final lap. But
Lee is
either way,
sliding that thing all over the place too.
Yeah, either way, I think Lee Anderson's goal here is to not let Greg get close to him no matter how many laps are left.
Yeah, he needs this to be the last lap, and he's really throwing that thing around, and slowly Greg is closing in. He's only 0.8 of a second. Just remember, after lap 1, he was over 6 seconds behind by the time he got into second place, and he's really had to work hard all the way to the end.
Polacek is suffering from damage that's cost him 5th place to Ludwig Sauer. Now, you see those cars running off there. You can get a slowdown penalty, I think, for doing that too much. Hopefully, that hasn't happened to either of our top 2 competitors. I definitely don't want to see this race determined by a slowdown penalty, although I think Greg Seitz would quite like that, because I don't know if he can do anything this far back. Lee Anderson is still holding a fairly comfortable half a second to a 1 second lead. There's not really many great passing opportunities between here and the line, and I think Anderson has proven throughout this race that he is able to hold off for this kind of pressure from Greg Seitz, and there's not much Greg can do. Greg is throwing it deep into the corners. He takes a look down the inside, but he was way too far back from Anderson to do anything reasonable. The checkered flag is waving. It is the final lap. It is the final turn, and it is going to be a victory for Lee Anderson.
Very nicely done for Lee, with Greg Seitz coming in a close second. Great battle. Here comes the battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Christopher Giros has it. Engen all over the back of him. Not too much pressure from behind now. Like I say, Sauer got 5th from Polacek, who's running around with a damaged nose cone. So Giros will round out the podium. And well-deserved him. He's a driver who has spent most of the race in 3rd place. Polacek is going very slowly, Richie. He's actually dropped all the way back to 7th.
Yeah, his car is not turning at all, so that's going to hurt his point standings a little bit, because he was looking good, but it's now going to put him back a little bit, with Engen going to gain some points on these guys.
Yeah, and that's going to wrap the finish up here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. We watch the rest of the cars cross the line, but there aren't any battles left out there. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and we will be back with you for a full race rundown and driver interviews here on the GSRC. Don't go away. everyone, welcome back to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya in Spain, where we just witnessed round 4 of 5 of a championship for the absolute beginners Formula Neagle Cup. We thought Greg Seitz was going to be in trouble at the start of a race when there were cars wrecking all around him. He got through that, but was not able to take home the win. Lee Anderson got the win, Seitz got second, but still a great point stay for Seitz. Christopher Guerrero spent most of the race in third place, and that's where he ended up finishing ahead of Sondra Engen and Ludwig Sauer, rounding out that top 5. Josh Brain was quietly able to make his way up to 6th after Wojciech Polacek got a damaged front wing late on in the race and dropped back to 7th. Matt Tempest was up there early on, but faded back as the race went on, down to 8th. Christopher Crook, 19th to 9th. You're probably thinking, wow, what a great, exciting race he had. Well, honestly, it was a great, exciting one lap. Pretty much picked those spots up at the start and then rode around the 9th for the rest of it. Frederick Neptune rounded out the top 10.
Coming home 11th is going to be Edgar Sancinelli, and right behind him will be Andrew Saunders. These guys battled all the way to the end. Sean Tricek is going to come home 13th, had a little incident coming into the pit lane. That's going to put him a lap down, coming home 14th with Peter Houston. Troy Banks will finish 15th. I believe he was the last car running. Position 16th is Lee Woodburn. 17th is Elias Focek. 18th is Michael Hafledawson. And 19th is Neil Armstrong. And those guys were all included in that opening lap incidents.
Also in the opening lap incident was Greg, but Greg, you only got a small piece of that opening lap wreck, but was your car damaged throughout the race?
Yeah, it was a little bit. I wasn't sure until I started, once I started to catch up to Lee, every time down a straightaway, I would lose a 10th or 2. And that turned out to be a big difference because, it was really impossible to kind of get on the back of him. But yeah, looking at the replay afterwards, it looks like my front nose cone came off. And I don't know if I had any rear damage from Michael running into me or not.
Now, we saw you pretty much dive off to the left once you realized all heck was breaking loose, basically, in that first corner. Was that a championship deciding move? Was that you thinking, hey, I better go off in the infield here and make sure I salvage a finish to defend this championship?
Not really. I was just kind of the momentum just from being hit behind. And then, I initially was going to kind of take a safe line onto the inside, but I saw Michael coming way too fast. And so I had to let out a little bit. And then Lee ended up chopping my nose, not his fault at all, because I had to extend my braking zone because I think it would have been a lot worse if I hadn't done that. And so just the momentum took me off the track after that. And then I got alongside somebody who was just blinking like crazy. So I couldn't make any moves on that first lap, which probably cost me another couple seconds. So it was a tough race for me.
Yeah, so it sounds like from your perspective, there were a couple of things that stopped you from catching Lee Anderson there. You mentioned the damage, you mentioned the poor opening lap. But I'll tell you what, it was very exciting from us to watch you run down Lee Anderson lap after lap. You were clicking off temps. He wasn't really making that many mistakes. It was fun to watch. Overall, was it a fun race from your perspective?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was a little frustrating. I got some more bad luck with lap traffic on top of it, just to add insult to injury. so I knew it was going to be really hard. I think kind of things went his way today. Not to take anything away from his win because he did a great job. But yeah, it was fun. It's always kind of fun to try to chase people down, but a little frustrating when you just don't have a complete car underneath you.
Yeah, certainly could have got another win today, but that's okay. We got one more race before the end of the season, and hopefully, Greg, it won't be as eventful for you as this one was.
Yeah, let's hope not. But anyway, congrats to Lee. A great win for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll echo that. Congratulations to Lee Anderson, our race winner today. Well, Richie, we're going to wrap it up quite quickly here because we have another broadcast on GSRC going on. They're racing the S18 Racer Fords over on the iRacing Esports Network. So be sure to check that out. Before you do that, though, we got a few people we'd like to thank, including the Absolute Beginners League for organising the Formula Neagle Cup and also contracting with GSRC to broadcast it. Thanks to the company's equipment and software that you see listed on our screen that we use on our broadcast. The original music that gives every GSRC broadcast that unique flavour and feel is thanks to June Lalonde. See the screen for how to get hold of how to contact her. Wow, this was the Absolute Beginners Formula Neagle Cup round number 4 race. It will continue. One more round left in 2 weeks' time on December 1st on round number 5 at Silverstone. So be sure to check those out and see if Greg Seitz can hold on to the championship, or who knows what could happen there. On screen now are some more upcoming broadcasts, so be sure to check those out. Mark them down on your calendar. And if you'd like more information about GSRC, including a complete list of future broadcasts, you can find it all at our site, globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_gram. And while you're here, if you haven't done it yet, be sure to become a GSRC YouTube subscriber by hitting that red button underneath this video. Finally, on behalf of the entire crew, Richie, Sean and Dougie, I'd like to thank you all for watching as Lee Anderson wins here at Barcelona. With that said, we're off to have fun storming the castle. Oh, apparently Bill wrote the script at some point. So until then, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.